Okay, lots to get into, not the least of which is a First Amendment discussion happening pretty close to home. There is a hearing that is going on. I don't know if it's still going on or not. I'll need to check on it. But there was a hearing going on about a colleague of ours in Nashville. And I call him a colleague because I know Michael Patrick Leahy. He owns and is the head googly-moogly over at the Tennessee Star. The Tennessee Star is an online publication. It's delving in state and local news that matters. That's kind of their mantra. Their what they do on the internet side of things is very valuable for our community, and I appreciate Michael Patrick Leahy and everything he does. I appreciate his friendship, and I've become friends with him over the 2.5 years. I suppose one could consider him a competitor in this arena of information and ideas, but we don't look at him that way. He's a peer, and they do great work over at the Tennessee Star. Brian Wilson, our own Brian Wilson on Supertalk 99.7 WTN, has also done great work in the same arena involving the Covenant School journals and the various writings of the individual involved in that shooting in March of 2023. Brian's done great work. Leahy has done great work. Leahy has also, as the editor-in-chief of the Tennessee Star, is a party to the case involving what some would consider cover-up of the writings of the Covenant School shooter. And today, Michael Patrick Leahy is in court. He has been releasing information that has been leaked to him and others. The Tennessee Star received over 80 pages, or approximately 80 pages, of the writings of the Covenant School shooter from a source familiar with the Covenant investigation. And as a result of that, Michael Patrick Leahy has been going over this information and has been releasing selected material, not directly from the source material, but as related by the Tennessee Star after carefully going over the writings and the journals, et cetera, et cetera. Those pieces of information that would be pertinent to the community, or maybe, some of it is more salacious, some of it is more not driven by, I'm not casting aspersions at Leahy when I say this, but I would tell you that some of this is tragedy porn, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't be in the public specter anyway, because those two things are, just because you decide whether you want to absorb information or not does not in any way give the government authorities the right to preclude you from absorbing that information. That said, he's in court today to defend himself in front of a judge as a result of the release of some of that information. Our own Brian Wilson has been releasing selected pieces of information, as well as he's gotten source material coming into him, and he's done a number of interviews as well, although he is not a party to this show call's hearing, which is demanding that as a party to the case, Michael Patrick Leahy, and this is a case involved in releasing all of the materials to the general public and the press, as a party to the case, the judge is demanding to know, the judge in the case, she is demanding that Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star show cause as to why they are not held in contempt of court as a result of publishing what is considered to be leaked materials. Well, there are two. There's one, and that is the responsibility and role of the press. There's another, and that's the responsibility and the role of the leaker themselves. And I think the judge has authority over the quote-unquote leaker. I don't think the judge has any authority over the press here. Friends, I understand that this is a distasteful conversation considering how close it is to home and the fact that we're talking about 6 people dying, including 3 children, 9-year-old children. The one takeaway that from the beginning of the Covenant School shooting, once we figured out what happened, and once we figured out a timeline of what happened, and we will talk with Brink Fiddler of Defense Systems. He's actually in our building today conducting some on-site training. I talk about Defense Systems all the time. You guys hear me talking about them all the time. And we'll have him in studio once he wraps up some of his training in the 2 o'clock hour, and we will talk a little bit about the Covenant School shooting and how much worse it could have been. had there not been the proper training within that school. Now, I understand that it was bad enough, and I understand that it's hard to speak in relative terms when you're talking about 6 people dead, including 3 kids. But, friends, it could have been so much worse. Had the teachers in those schools not had the appropriate training to know exactly what to do at the moment that they realized that there was an active shooter situation. We get caught up, and rightly so, there's nothing wrong with this, but we get caught up in discussing and debating what could have been done to flag this individual. I know that's a hot button word, to flag this individual as someone to watch out for, the possibility existing that this person could go off at any moment, the idea that this person related to their therapist, their psychiatrist, or multiple psychiatrists, that they were having these fantasies or these desires to commit acts of violence against family members and others. All of that's important discussion. It's an important discussion to talk about Second Amendment rights and how curtailing Second Amendment rights against law-abiding citizens will not do anything to further the cause of security at our schools, in my opinion. All of those are important conversations to have. And they all lead, I mean, they are born of a negative place. Having a conversation born of a more positive outlook on this is important too. And I would say that to understand why I would tell you that it could have been so much worse, you have to understand what exactly happened that day and how simple things like having locks on the doors in the classrooms, like having shades on the door windows in the classrooms, like knowing which wall, literally knowing which wall to tell your children to hide against in the classroom, saved lives and prevented the shooter from killing many, many more people. No child, there were multiple classes going on that day. There were hundreds of kids in that school that day. And no child inside of a classroom was killed. As a matter of fact, nobody that was in a classroom was killed. Mike Hill was killed outside of the doorway, just off of the hallway that the shooter breached, and then the 3 children and the substitute teacher were killed in the hallway because they were responding to a fire alarm, and then the principal of the school was killed trying to figure out why the fire alarm was going on, and she was going down the hall and she encountered the shooter. All of that to say that training and awareness matters, and I'm very sensitive to it because I just got out of a training class, and we'll talk to Brink a little bit later on. And you apply that to the public's need to know. Sometimes we run against a situation where the government tells us we don't need to know certain information, and I would say that the government only gets to tell us that if there are security protocols that might be in place that could be compromised, or there is a real and present danger against the general public or the general community as a result of releasing information. We don't need to know necessarily the schematics of the room or the building to understand the nature of the shooter. Most of us believe, and I think Michael Patrick Leahy would count himself in that number as he stands in front of a judge. Whether or not he, as a member of the press, goes to jail today or not is up to a judge. He could go to jail today for a report as a member of the press. And why in the hell have more people in the press in this community not come to his defense? I don't have any connection with Michael Patrick other than I know him and I like him and I think he likes me, and he works for the Tennessee Star and I work for Super Talk 99.7 WTN. But why have more not stepped up? More free speech advocates. Folks, I'm in the free speech business. It is what I do. It is the world that I live in. Why are more organizations like television stations not stepping up and offering editorial comment that it is a dangerous thing to threaten members of the press with jail because they presented information that no one is suggesting was a present danger to the community. No one has suggested that any of this information would do anything to harm the police investigation, which is ultimately non-existent. None of this is going to do anything to harm the community outside of the emotional toll that we have taken, but that is the responsibility of the shooter, not the responsibility of Michael Patrick Leahy. The danger in not releasing this information, more importantly, and more to the point, the danger in allowing the government to tell us what we are allowed to see and what we are allowed not to see, or what we can be prevented from seeing, that danger is far more important than any suggestion that this will give any copycats any ideas. Because one, that while I understand the concern there, that concern does in no way outweigh the right of the people to know in a free and open society.